why are tables important? Like, why should we even care about that? And honestly, the answer is because it sets the tone of the whole meal.
Are meal times a serious struggle? Does your child eat a limited number of foods? Does your child eliminate entire food groups? Are you tired of waiting for them to just grow out of it? Welcome to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater, where you'll learn strategies to help your picky eater expand their palate. With Christine Murati Yoder, a pediatric feeding specialist, speech pathologist, mom of a child with feeding issues, and author of Mealtime Mindset. Let's get started. Here's Christine.
Hi, welcome to the show. I'm Christine, and I'm here to hopefully make mealtimes fun and easy and as stress-free as possible for every member of your family. While we also try to use food as a tool to get your kids as much nutrition as humanly possible. So, today's topic we're going to be talking about is how to have fun with decorating your table. Now, this is a topic I've touched on before. I do have an episode called Tables Are for Food. And it's a chapter in my book. It's a module in our course because this is such an important topic, I think, that is so often overlooked. And, you know, why are tables important? Like, why should we even care about that? And honestly, the answer is because it sets the tone of the whole meal. Like, we want to be in a place that's inviting for us to sit down and eat, right? When you go to a restaurant, it's not like you're sitting, in like a dark, gloomy place. There isn't a lot of like piles of papers and trash and odds and ends from the restaurant in your eating space, right? So why should it be any different when you're in your own house? But a lot of times we use our place of eating as like a holding place for our just, everything, like whatever, it could be laundry, it could be stuff from camp, stuff from school. You might use it to like just throw things on. Some people don't even eat at their table, right? So, it's wherever you and your family all sit together. And if you don't have a place like that, and it could be that that place is your living room. Like, depending on, how your house is set up and everything, but many places that I've lived, my living room was really where I ended up eating most of the time. But if that's your place, then that's your place, right? So that's okay. It doesn't have to be in a kitchen. It can be in a different room. But what I'm saying is that actual, you want to create a space that is dedicated for where everyone is going to be able to eat together, ideally. And I know that sometimes that this is like a totally new concept to people, and others it's like, well, of course we all eat together. Where would we be eating? But a lot of times parents will eat very separately from their kids, especially kids who are picky eaters, because they find that they're making them a separate meal from the meal everyone else is eating, or just that you and your spouse are eating. So a lot of times we start to separate the meal times into their meal and my meal, but I really want to try to encourage you to get to a place where you're going to kind of merge those two things into one. Um, you will, I think, have it will lead to more enjoyable meal times in the future. I'm not going to say that that transition is going to be super easy at first, but it will definitely be worth it in the long run, I think. Most people that report that they're highly satisfied and have happy meals, a lot of times those families do mention that there is a shared meal time together. in a shared space. So that separation of meals between kids and families, it's usually more associated with dissatisfaction in parent mealtime. So, even if you're thinking like, wow, that's like a future goal, there are some things that you can start to do today to make some of those tiny shifts. And that's what this episode is going to be about. So I'm really excited about this one. Um, now, I don't know how artistic or creative you are, but there is definitely going to be a tip in here, whether you're super creative and artsy or you have nothing to do with that world at all. So we'll find ways to make it easy for everyone. Okay, so my first tip is something I learned from Kay Toomey, which is creating a learning plate for your child, giving them ownership over their own plate, something where they know that that's where they're going to learn about new foods, that, new foods will be on that sort of plate. And it can be separate from the plate that they're normally using, right? Because a learning plate isn't like your meal plate, because your meal plate, that's where you're consuming the calories you need and the nutrients you need, hopefully, to sustain your energy for the day. But when we're learning about something, we're not going to be able to eat a ton of it. We're just experiencing it. We might be just learning to smell it or learning to touch it or learning to lick it or take bites, right? So that's what this plate's for. So, what you can do, and it's fairly inexpensive to do this, is you can just get a super cheap, plain white plate, ceramic plate. It has to be ceramic, it can't be plastic. So yeah, definitely cannot be plastic. So you get like a plain white ceramic plate. Um, you can probably get them at the dollar store. Um, should be plain, shouldn't have any designs on it, ideally, just totally plain. I have gotten these from Amazon. They tend to come in bulk on Amazon. So, unless you want to make a bunch of plates, I would maybe check out the dollar store first. That might be the easiest place, or something like a TJ Maxx or a Marshalls where you could like just buy one or so. You don't have to buy a whole set. Um, it should be really inexpensive. But what you do want to get on Amazon or at a craft supply store is special porcelain markers. And they're not very expensive, but they are specific types of markers that you can write on ceramic plates. And what you do is you have your child draw, make their name, whatever they want, and you bake it in the oven. It gives you directions on the marker package, but you bake it in the oven, and after, you're done baking it in the oven, you take it out and you're going to be able to like wash it, and that design, whatever they made, won't come off. So it's a really cool idea. It's a fun way to introduce like, hey, this is like your special plate and this is where you're going to learn about foods. So that's great. I love that idea. So that's idea number one. Idea number two, you can do this also with a placemat. So you can get like a plain placemat. Sometimes there's placemats you can buy that you can color on and decorate yourself. Now, the placemat we talk about in the cueing. So if you haven't read my book, Mealtime Mindset, I have a whole chapter that talks about cues and how you could use a placemat as a cue. But yeah, something ideally that you can bring with you from place to place. A plain plastic one is fine. You could even make something and like on a regular piece of paper and then get it laminated at like if you don't have a laminator, at like a Staples or some sort of a office supply store. They usually do things like that for you. So you can do that. And that, again, it's something that is more special. It's theirs. They created it. There's some ownership there. And it's something that will bring, we talked about this in the last episode. We're talking about having fun this month and how important it is to create positive associations with meal times, right? So when we're making these things, kids generally enjoy being creative and coloring and putting their own personal touch and making sure their name is on it, and it being theirs, that ownership. So doing things like this that creates that for them, and it's an association to mealtime, that when they see it, when it gets pulled out, when you bring it out with you, it's that, okay, that's that positive association. Like, oh, yeah, this was something fun that I did with mom or dad or grandma or whoever. This was something fun that we did. This is a positive experience, a positive memory, and that they're going to hopefully start to associate that with your mealtime. So, um, those are great. Um, we have, I have another tip. This one's going to be a little bit harder. Um, so I don't know if you've ever done origami, but I did learn some origami, I feel like in elementary school, and there's so many tutorials on YouTube. But, just using a plain napkin, you can do some origami. Like if you have a plain square napkin, it has to really be a square, I believe. But there's so many fun things you can make out of napkins. And this might be something that like you guys start to learn to do together. You can watch a YouTube video, make an origami napkin, and you might be like, okay, well, what does that have to do with food? Like it's a napkin. But remember, we need positive associations with meal times because they're up until this point, there's been negative associations. So we have to reprogram them to be excited and happy about meal times. So doing things that are fun, things that are, interesting, whatever, together is going to build that like and trust factor back up between you and your child, between your child and food, etc. So, you could, even if you don't want to do origami, you can just color on napkins, or, you can write your affirmations on napkins. You can do whatever on a paper napkin, right? So, doing some napkin art would be fun too. I do have a few more tips for you. But first, I want to remind you that if you do like this, if you're finding value, you can rate, review, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell. I post videos every week about food and picky eating, how to kind of eliminate that as a problem, and also parent mindset. Now, if you're not sure if your child even needs support with this, please take my free quiz. I have a free quiz on our website, foodallergyfeeding.com. Now, if you need more one-to-one help, we do offer that. We have free webinars on our website. We have our parent courses where we offer help and some one-to-one coaching. So now back to the tips. So, one of the things that we talked about, I believe it was last week with, no, it was not last week. Last week was serving food. But we've talked about it in a previous episode about doing things like even just switching up where people sit at the table. So you can have your child create like a little place card with people's names on it. So it could just be like mom's place card, a dad's place card, grandma's place card, whoever. And, have them kind of pick who's going to sit where and switch up. Kind of, people tend to sit in the same spots at every meal. So switch up a little bit where people are sitting. That's a good way to switch up the cue of where just a mealtime cue. If you don't know much about mealtime cues, again, that's in my book. And I think I might have an episode about it as well. I do talk about cues an awful lot. But that might be a fun way because then they can be creative. They can create that little, that place card, maybe even with like a little note or heart or I love you, or a positive affirmation that they can see when they kind of open up their name tag. And it gives them again that like positive association with the table, some ownership over and control over that mealtime, even if it's just where people sit. You might think that that's so trivial and they wouldn't care, but kids love any ounce of control. And a lot of kids who are picky they tend to exert their control over food because it's the one area of their life that they have that complete control. So when we start to give them more control outside of that mealtime, they might be a little bit more flexible and willing when it comes to actually putting food in front of them. Okay, my next tip is a fun one. Oh, I'm just gonna take a quick sip of water. Do a lot of talking. Is making a centerpiece. So, kids aren't going to be able to do anything really crazy or fancy. It's going to be things you have around the house or things they found outside. Now, I know that there's going to be some of you that are like, there's no way they're bringing stuff from outside onto the table. But you could, of course, rinse and wash things, having them pick some flowers, finding some rocks that they like to decorate the table. Like those things can be washed, right? And again, it gives them that like little bit of ownership, a little bit of that pride and like helping to create something. And again, that positive association with the table, all important things. So that would be great. But if they don't have that, they can build a flower out of Legos, right? Like it doesn't have to be, or, they can draw a picture or like I said, do some origami. Like you can make anything into a centerpiece. It's just something that's sitting in the middle of the table, right? So it could be things you have around your house, but it can really be just about anything. Um, something made out of pom-poms or Play-Doh or clay. You can make things out of whatever you have. But just, that idea of like that you're going to try to make the table a nice, presentable place to eat. And then they have that ownership of being the ones to create that. Is really powerful for kids. So that's one I would definitely recommend. That's an easy one. It doesn't take a lot of effort. You don't really have to even do anything. Just say like, "Hey, I really need help decorating the table today. Can you think of some things that we could make or put around the table?" You could even get some ideas, some pictures. Be like, what, how do you think we can make some flowers? Like, what do you have? Maybe we can use your Play-Doh or your modeling clay, or you can draw, or you can glue them with pom poms, whatever you want it to be. But I think that will, give them a job to do. Kids love a job. So that's a fun way to do that as well. Let's see. One more. Have them pick the tablecloth color, and if tablecloth is not something you're used to having, that's fine. You don't have to do a tablecloth. If that doesn't resonate with you, it's totally cool. Or if you want to do like one of those plastic tablecloths, you can have them color it even. Or having them, giving them a choice like, hey, I wasn't sure. Should I do the yellow tablecloth or the green one? And having them pick. Again, it's those little tiny pieces of control that you can easily give up that don't matter much to us, but could mean a lot to your kid. So again, giving them as much control over that environment as possible. And it also helps switch up those cues at the same time. So it's like double, I don't know, what is that? Two birds, one stone type of a thing. So I'm going to give my final tip. Just be sure to, if you love the podcast, we are on YouTube as well. So be sure to subscribe there. We're now on TikTok as well. But every time you engage, make a comment, a share, a like, it does help get the video out to more people. So we do appreciate any and all of that support. So please, if you're getting value, please, like, share, etc. If you need more help, of course, you can visit us at foodologyfeeding.com. And my last tip is food as a decoration. Okay, so, of course, we've probably all seen like the beautiful carved watermelons, and I'm not suggesting that you take the time to learn to do that. But you can, of course, cut food up into fun shapes and use that as a decoration, or you can literally just have some fruit and say, here, can you just put this in a clear vase or bowl? Like that could be your centerpiece. But when you use food itself as a centerpiece, you're also getting that added touch factor. Because again, it's not even helping prepare the meal. It's let's use this as a decoration. I need help decorating. So, can you decorate by putting these oranges into this clear bowl so we have something pretty to look at on the table, right? So it's getting their help. So what it really the themes that we've learned in this episode here is we want to give them some level of control, a small level of control that's really easy for us to give up. It doesn't mean anything to us, doesn't take away from anything, but it gives up a little control, gives them a little bit control back, and they love that, kids. Um, Getting them creative and creating a positive association with different aspects of mealtime, with decorating a table, with decorating a plate, with creating art and origami or coloring. It's a positive association with being at the table. When you have a picky eater, they don't have that positive association at the table because they're used to it being the place where food is introduced, and food can be scary and overwhelming. And we are reprogramming them slowly to not be so afraid of that by switching the negative associations to positive ones. So we got to meet kids where they're at. Kids love being creative, kids love being artistic, kids love a little bit of control, right? So decorating a table hits all of those boxes. And it also like kind of it's a little bit of building a bond between you and your child too. Like those are all fun activities and memories, things you can do together. Some of them they'll definitely need more help than others, right? So take from this what resonates with you and what you think would be a good fit. Don't feel like you have to do all of them to be successful. Just take the tips that you're like, oh yes, I could definitely do that one successfully and easily, then do that one. But I do hope that these tips have helped you and given you some ideas and inspiration, and that you're able to implement them, right into your routine and start seeing some success with that. But otherwise, we will see you again next week, or we'll have another fun topic to chat about. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.